All right, welcome back. We're about to learn the last new thing of the 17-18 school year, because after this we're going to review. Before we do so, we're going to review one more thing that we've already done in this chapter, which is solving by factoring. Okay, so these 6 problems, you're going to try those. Your sub is going to pause the video so that you can try these 6 by factoring. Okay, so I'm assuming we're back on play, and we're going to talk about how we would factor and solve these 6. So remember, the first rule of factoring is always to factor out a common factor if there is one. And on number 1, we have the common factor of 7x. And if we divide 7x out, then we have x minus 4 remaining in the parentheses. And remember, you can go backwards to check your work on this step by saying to yourself, 7x times x is 7x squared, and 7x times negative 4 is negative 28x. All right, so now that we have the factors, remember that always when x is by itself outside of one of the parentheses, then one of the solutions is 0. We're looking at this number times this number equal to 0, so this number, the value of x that makes this number 0 is 0. The one that would make 0 in the inside of the parentheses is 4, because 4 minus 4 would be 0. And those are our 2 solutions. On number 2, that one we're looking for at 25 as our major focus, the constant term. And we notice that 25 times 1 is our 2 factors, and 5 times 5 are 2 factors. And we choose the 5 times 5 because that's the pair that we can use to make a sum of 10, this middle term. So we could call it x plus 5 times x plus 5, or we could call it x plus 5 squared equal to 0. Either way, there's just one answer to this equation, and that is negative 5, because a negative 5 replacing x here or here is going to make 0 and make that multiplication equal to 0. Moving over to number 3. For that one, our factoring strategy can't work until we make it equal to 0. So to accomplish that, we will add 80. And so now 80 is on the same side with everything else. This looks more like what we're used to seeing when we factor a trinomial. And we've got a lot of possible factors for 80. There's 3 of them. Let's see, 5 times 16, 8 times 10. Is there another one? I think that's all. So the pair that's going to work for us is 8 and 10, because we can make that into negative 18 if we make both of them negative. So x minus 8 and x minus 10 are the factors that will work. And with those 2 factors, our 2 solutions will be 8 and 10. Now, of the ones on this page, number 4 is the only one that we might use a different strategy on. We could do this, solve this using square roots also. But in the interest of doing what we were supposed to do is practice factoring, we will do our factors. Now, 7 times 7 and 1 times 49 are the only pairs that will work. We choose 7 and 7 because they're the ones that we can use to make a sum of 0, because this has no middle term. It's a 0x. So we would need plus 7 minus 7 to make 0 in the middle. But 7 times negative 7 is negative 49. And now you can see why the two answers are positive 7 and negative 7. On number 5, again, we have a situation where we need to get it equal to 0 before we can start thinking about factoring. But once we've done that, we're back to where we were on number 1 because there is a common factor in all of these. Those are all even numbers. Therefore, everything can be divided by 2. If we divide by 2, this becomes 1x squared, 5x, negative 10x becomes 5x, and 28 becomes 14. Now, from there, we can see that it looks like we will be able to do minus 7 and plus 2 as our factors, because negative 7 plus 2 is negative 5, negative 7 times 2 is negative 14, and that makes those two factors, and our two solutions will be 7 and negative 2. Now, number 6 is the most challenging one. Again, we need to make things equal to 0 before we can start our factoring strategy. So we're going to subtract 15 from both sides and make that equal to 0. And here we don't have a common factor, and we're going to look at the product of the leading term and the constant term. 4 times 15 is 60. So we could do that with 1 times 60, 2 times 30, 3 times 20, 4 times 15, 5 times 12, and let's see, 6 times 10. Okay, we've got a lot to choose from there. We need to choose a pair that can make 17 in the middle. Now we have two choices. We could do it with 3 and 20, and we could do it with 5 and 12. But to get 5 and 12 to make 17, they have to be, to make negative 17, they would have to both be negative. And if we have two negative numbers multiplied, we're not going to get a negative product. Okay, so we need to use the 3 and 20 because we can do 20 minus 3. So I'm going to rewrite this way. Using the 3 and 20, 4x squared minus 20x plus 3x minus 15 equals 0. So you can see what I've done is change negative 17x into minus 20x and plus 3x. So these two terms together make our negative 17x. Now we're going to look at just the first two terms to see what they have in common. And it looks like they both have 4x in common. And then this will be x minus 5. So 4 times 5 is 20. 4x times x is 4x squared. Then for the other two terms, it looks like they both divide by 3. Looking at just the 3x minus 15 there. And then this will be x minus 5 also. And with that, if we can write it this way, then that means we can rearrange things and say 4x plus 3 belong in one parenthesis, and the x minus 5 belongs in the other. And with that pair of factors, 5 is a solution, easily seen right here, where 5 minus 5 would be 0. And also, we have 2 steps to solve this, subtracting 3, dividing by 4, and so negative 3/4. And that's a quick review of solving by factoring.